Last week we made a video here on the channel on the 5 things that we want to see in the next iteration of Football Manager in FM24. Now we came up with 5 ideas in that video, from better graphics to new Director of Football modes and plenty of other things. If you want to go check out that video, go ahead. But in that video I asked you guys to comment what you'd want to see in FM24 so we could make a follow-up video based on your comments, what you want to see in the new game, and you guys came in with over 100 comments. So we're going to take a look at some of the most requested features, the most interesting ones, the comments that were liked the most, and we're going to have a look at what you guys want to see in the new game. Before we get into it though, if you could go ahead and smash that like button for us. It only takes a few seconds to do, it's completely free, and we'd really appreciate it because then YouTube sees that you guys enjoy your content, they'll push it out to more people, and we can get even more ideas in the comments below. And who knows, maybe it will fall in front of a Right Eyes, someone who works at Sports Interactive, and these things could actually happen. Very much a long shot, but please, if you could go ahead and smash that like button, we'd massively appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below any feature requests that you think we missed. But with that being said, let's get right into it. The most common feature request that we saw and the most liked comment about what features you guys would like to see was international management. Now, it's something that I didn't put in my FM24 wish list despite me knowing about it, because it's not something that I've ever had the want to do, really, to manage internationally on Football Manager. And it is a possibility. If you don't play FM and you don't know, you can manage international teams, but the big issue that people have with it is it's not very fleshed out at all. There isn't too much to it, and people thought there'd be big improvements to it this year, particularly with it being a World Cup year, but it wasn't to be. Again, I don't really manage internationally, but I've been told by the comments that you can't even create your own training schedules, and it's so limited compared to what you can do as a club manager. Now, obviously, it's never going to be as fleshed out as the normal management game, nor is it in real life. In international management, there isn't going to be transfers. There's some features that you just won't have control over. But with that being said, I do certainly think there's some kind of rework needed to international management. The fact that so many of you are requesting it goes to show it's a feature that a lot of people would at least appreciate having the option of doing. So that's something that it seems like you guys want to see in the next game, and I feel like it would be of good benefit. So I rate that as a pretty good suggestion. Another idea that was really well supported in the comments was a change to how sponsorships work in FM24. Now, you might think, what do I mean by this? Well, based on the comments, I actually think it's a pretty good idea. Now, what normally happens in Football Manager is at the end of every season, you get your end of season review and you get told if your sponsorship money has gone up or down. Sometimes in your inbox, you'll find out you've agreed a new deal with a sponsor, but you as a manager have no control over that. Your job is just to make the team play well and hope that new sponsors come with it. And for the sake of a football management simulation, that's about as much as you can go. And for that reason, I feel like this isn't something Sports Interactive would do, but the idea that you guys had was that every season, maybe at least once you've been at a club for a few years, the board will discuss with you potential sponsorships. You'll get options for sponsors, let's say your shirt sponsor, where you'll be told maybe that you can have a 5-year deal with this company and get 20 million a year, or you can have a 3-year deal with this company but get 25 million a year, and you can balance out the ideas of that. Think about whether you think the club's going to progress enough to get new sponsors after the end of that 3-year contract, or maybe you go with a long one to secure the money on a long-term deal. All of these ideas are very interesting. The fact of you as the manager having some kind of influence, at least being able to talk to the board about what sponsorship opportunities you might take. Maybe you get presented with free packages every season and you get to choose the one that you want. I think it's a good idea, but I don't think it's something that they will implement, purely because, as mentioned, I don't think this is something that managers would get involved with that much in real life. Maybe for a club legend, it's something that you might be allowed to get involved with, but it is a good idea. A revamp to sponsorship and merchandising at the club, as good as it might seem, I don't feel like we've got a very strong possibility of that. The other common one that was requested in the comments a lot, and it's always requested by fans of FM, is the ability to spend your wages. Now, in-game, you can renegotiate your contracts with clubs, get more money in. I believe there's even a way where you can see how much money you've made over the course of your career. Not sure where, but I feel like I have seen that at some point before. Maybe I'm completely making that up. But either way, FM fans out there do want to go ahead and be able to spend their wages. But for me, I don't really see how they'd implement this into the game. Let's say you can go out and spend your money on a nicer house or a nicer car. What does that do for you? It's not represented in any way. Maybe there's better ideas that you can think of that I'm not coming up with here. But I get that there have been games before where you can spend the money that you earn, but I don't feel like Football Manager would be the place for it. Like I say, you might buy a mansion, you might be able to click a car and be able to buy it, but that doesn't mean anything for you as a manager. Personally, I try and negotiate my contract as low as possible with the club so that they have at least a bit more funds, maybe in a transfer budget, and I'm really not bothered about how much money I get in game. I imagine that's the same for all of you, and I get the idea of adding some kind of incentive to be getting paid more money, to be able to buy a nicer house or nicer car, but I just don't see how they'd implement it into the game. So for that, I don't really think it's something we'll see. I don't really see, at least right now, the benefit of that. Another thing that was highly suggested and was something that we actually covered in our suggestions for the new game was, of course, an improved graphics system. I saw someone commenting saying to be able to have FIFA 14 graphics wouldn't be too hard. That's 10 years ago now in a FIFA sense, and I half agree. I do definitely think they need to improve the graphics. Whether you'll get FIFA level ever, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure that's the way they'll go with it, but I do feel like there should be some kind of improvement, a big improvement to the graphics of the match engine. I mentioned in my video before that it wasn't something that I'd ever wanted beforehand, but now I kind of see what is the reason not to do it. They've had so long to improve it, I feel. I just think there's another step that needs to be taken in the way the match engine looks. But one of the things that you guys came up with, I actually really like the idea of. Now, in Football Manager, you can have plenty of different camera styles, whether that's the director one that I use, the data analyst view, the vertical scrolling, behind the goal, sideline TV, and you can zoom these in and out and almost have a free floating camera, but not really. Now, one of the ideas was to have exactly that, a free floating camera, which you can place anywhere, angle however you want, and watch the game from that angle. But there was another idea that I really, really liked, and that was a player camera. Now, what this would allow you to do is, whether it's a game that you're watching live or maybe a highlights package of a player that you're trying to sign, you'd be able to assign the camera to a specific player. So let's say you really wanted to watch how Pereira's been playing in your new tactic. How is the inside forward working? Well, with this new camera, you could set the camera here, let's say, to player camera, and then choose your player, Oscar Pereira, and for the whole game, you can watch how he plays from his view, how he looks at the pitch, how he's positioned, whether he's in the right places all the time. It's something that you can analyze from your own camera angles normally, but to be able to have that on an individual player, to get an idea of how they play, how you might be able to tweak the tactic to help them play better, I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that wouldn't be too hard to implement into the game. I mentioned this in the last video, but I'm not a game designer in any way, but that doesn't seem overly complicated, just to be able to have the camera set on a certain player. Maybe I'm completely wrong by that, but I feel like it's something that could be added, a small feature that I feel like a lot of players will at least get some benefit from, maybe even if it's just watching a highlight of an incredible goal. To watch it from a camera angle just hovering over your player would be really cool to see. Just taking a 20-second detour to let you guys know that I do have my own channel linked in the description down below, where we've taken a new direction with the channel recently. There's going to be one rebuild video every single week that you guys seem to really love. We started off with Sunderland, there's an Everton one coming soon. So if you want to come on over there, hit the subscribe button, check the content out, I'd really appreciate it, I'd be very grateful. But let's get back to your guys' ideas. Another idea from the comments came from a great Football Manager community member in TJ90, who I've spoke to plenty of times on Discord. He's got his own YouTube channel as well. But his idea was that there should be some kind of option as a manager to vote on new rules and regulations that come into your leagues. I imagine this would particularly take place if you did a long-term save, whether that's having a winter break or having VAR. These are things that the press conferences always ask you about. What is your manager's opinion on winter breaks, on a VAR? Is it something that you'd want? Well, in real life, there is usually some kind of influence from the clubs on these decisions. You'll take the 20 clubs in a league, let's say, in the Spanish league, in the Premier League, and they have a choice on whether they want certain rules to be implemented. We saw it with VAR, we've seen it with plenty of different rule changes over the years, and it's something that as a manager, it would be cool to have an influence over, particularly in a long-term save, and particularly when we're being asked about it so much in press conferences. It could be a cool feature for Sports Interactive to implement into the game, but whether we'll see it, I'm not so sure. New regen faces was something that a lot of people have asked for. It's something that we mentioned in our previous video. We spoke about potentially using AI to create faces that don't really exist, but realistic faces, which is something that can happen very easily just with a search on the internet now. There's websites where you can do that and have them implement some kind of system like that onto these players. I think that would be a real benefit to the game, and it will help a lot with building a connection to these new gen players, which is something that's pretty hard to do when you look at them and they have eyebrows like that and eyes like that, they just look insane. I feel like the amount of years that we've had a Football Manager, these new gen faces are something that are long overdue to be massively improved. And the final one, again, is involved in finances. And it was actually something that I thought was already in the game, but based on your comments, I guess it's not, and that is dynamic TV revenue. Now you might know this already, but if you play in a club that maybe isn't in a huge league and you slowly start to develop that league, let's say you're a side in Slovakia, right? And you eventually build that team up to be European giants. Your way of getting rich will be from competing in the Champions League and gaining TV money from that. But based on these comments, I would guess that your TV revenue, in terms of the sponsorship of the league itself, is staying about the same level, whereas the idea should be that as your team becomes better, there'll be more eyes on the league, and eventually that will lead to TV revenue being higher. And if that's not in the game already, I certainly think that's something they should add. Obviously, your TV revenue would go up over time anyway, because of you competing in better European competitions and eventually the Champions League. But the league itself, yes, I suppose there would be more of an interest in people watching it, and therefore the average TV revenue from being in that league should then be higher. But there we go. That's all the main points that were raised, but there were plenty more than that. So if you do want to go and check out the comments from the last video, there's plenty of great ideas in there. Let me know if any of these are ones that you really want to see in FM24, and hopefully you've enjoyed this wish list. Thank you for your help in contributing to this and making this wish list possible, but most of all, have a great day everyone, and I'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.